Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Minh, and I'm your host from NDIS Property Australia. And you listen to the SDA Housing Podcast, Australia explains, highlights, guides, and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Today, we have a special guest speaker, someone I randomly selected on LinkedIn to spun the wheel, and here she is. I don't know who she is. How am I getting it? Tanisha, how are you, Tanisha?
I'm well, Minh. How are you?
Good. Now, I've got Tanisha on this podcast interview just to talk about her experience, her knowledge, and her journey in this disability world. Because her background really is OT and SDA assessment. But Tanisha, tell me more about you, please. Who are you and what do you do?
I am an accredited access consultant. I have been working in this field for the last almost decade, almost 10 years. I am a registered occupational therapist. I am also a registered SDA Assessor, and I've been working within that space since it all started.
So you wear three hats. Do you wear three hats or you more so one?
Well, I do work under the title of an access consultant officially, and then SDA assessing is part of that title. So I work on SDA assessments some of the time, and my OT qualification is my background to all of that.
Can you please explain to us peasants out there, what these three hats mean, or why did you study all three, and why you're on the path that you are on right now of these three, please?
So, to cut a long story short, occupational therapy was something that I was very interested in working in the health space and the health realm space as an allied health professional. And then throughout my degree, I had discovered the world of home modifications. And I have an underlying interest in architecture, which seemed to fit, both interests. So moving into home modifications, I discovered the career option of an access consultant through some university lectures and, moved laterally into that space ever since. I've been working in architecture, helping designers and builders and building surveyors and other design stakeholders achieve accessible public spaces.
Wow, what a journey.
Yes. Yeah. It may seem like a bit of a mishmash, but it does all make sense.
So in layman's terms, are you a jack of all trades and a master of none, or are you a master of one of them?
I am a master of achieving accessible spaces, and that brings with it ideas and knowledge and experience of what makes an accessible space through understanding occupant characteristics, understanding disability and how that affects function, and what the needs are in an environment that could support those characteristics.
Wonderful. So what's your feedback on this NDIS world and the SDA market? I mean, from your perspective, you've been listening to our podcast, obviously, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
And how do you find the show?
I find it very interesting. As an SDA assessor, there's a lot that we're not exposed to in the SDA realm. We are almost, you could think of it as the tip of an iceberg where it comes to helping to achieve successful SDA dwellings and enrolments. We are not exposed to all of the underlying facets of what makes an SDA dwelling successful and achievable and thriving post-enrollment. So, listening to your podcast is definitely an eye-opener.
Oh, that's good. Are there many SDA assessors out there in the marketplace around Australia, do you think?
There are.
Yeah.
Yes, there are. We're all nationwide. It's quite easy to become an SDA assessor once you become an accredited access consultant. So that is a prerequisite. However, there are quite a lot of SDA assessors out there in the space.
Okay. Now, you mentioned to me on the phone call about a month or 2 months ago that your company you work for now, which we mentioned, is pulling back from the SDA assessment kind of services. Is there a reason for that kind of pullback?
It is a common theme and knowledge amongst SDA assessors that working in the SDA space compared to other industries like general, building and construction, the world itself of SDA assessment is a lot more complex. Our clients in the SDA space need a lot more time and a lot more assistance and a lot more support than other stakeholders in the design space would need with regards to achieving a successful SDA project. And that time and that support takes up a lot of resources. And we just don't feel that we have enough of those resources to give in that space at the moment.
In other words, it's not profitable enough.
Precisely. Yeah, not in so many words, but yeah.
All good. So tell me some gossip. I mean, is there any gossip in your world of access consulting and the people you work with and what you've seen out there in the marketplace for disability housing?
A lot of SDA assessors don't feel very confident in the future of SDA housing. And it has been a brewing theme for some time. And I think a lot of that comes down to the confusion and the lack of clarity around what makes a successful SDA design and whether or not a particular dwelling is actually fit for purpose once it's enrolled and out on the market. We have started seeing some clients come back with feedback post SDA enrolment, mentioning that a lot of their dwellings are not actually fit for purpose for a lot of their SDA participants. An example being robust housing, that our clients are expressing concern that the current SDA guidelines are not clear enough and they're not specific enough in the design materials and how to design an efficient, robust home to be able to support the needs of the participants, particularly those with challenging behavioural needs.
Yeah, the design guidelines is overdue for a bit of a revamp there. I recall Debbie in my office saying that, talked to other assessors in the past, that it was rushed through at the very start. And, you worked for SDA Consulting in the past, obviously, and Bruce Bromley is an architect of that guideline. But again, it needs a revamp there. And Bruce is very good at what he does. You were there for quite a number of years, weren't you?
Yes, Bruce is amazing. Bruce has been pivotal in the compilation of the SDA standards. And from what I hear, they are about to be reviewed. So, yeah, I suppose watch this space. Hopefully there will be some more clarity around the design guidelines and how to achieve more efficient homes.
It was supposed to be released to market at the end of last year, the changes, but are you saying it's being reviewed, or it should be reviewed, or it will be revamped? What are you saying?
We haven't seen anything published. I am not privy to a lot of the SDA internal groups, for example, on Facebook and or some of the other chat groups that we're involved where we're exposed to some of the gossip about updates and that. So I really don't know when it will be published or finalised.
Yeah.
But it is well overdue.
Yeah, gotcha. In your work, your line of work, have you done a lot of work with robust versus accessible? You tell me your work right there in the last few years.
Yeah, robust has been, it has actually taken somewhat of a nosedive in the last couple of years compared to when the SDA guidelines were first released. There's very little confidence amongst SDA developers and suppliers as to how to achieve an efficient, robust home. They feel that it's more expensive to establish and develop, and they just don't know how to go around it. And they're not entirely sure whether or not they even meet the SDA guidelines, whether it would still be fit for purpose. There's a lot of gaps.
Yeah. 4 years ago, everyone thought, if we get 2 robust participants into a house that's robust, that should be fine. The income should meet what's required. But many years later, everyone's now realised it's pretty much 1 participant per robust dwelling. But not just that, it's 1 participant in FA and HBS and IL as well. So it's 1 everywhere at the moment, not just only in robust. So the biggest challenge is it costs more, I think, to build a robust house. The income's lower. And I looked at the stats the other day. It's about 2,000 participants who would suit funding for SDA, for robust, sorry. So it's not many, no.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the logistics are and the legalities are and the eligibility is around eligibility for robust funding. I think it's slightly misconstrued. I think it's misunderstood as to whether or not a participant is actually eligible for robust funding. And I think there's a big shame around that. It really is sad to see. Robust housing is, in my opinion, one of the most important dwelling types to be available out there on the market. There are a lot of younger people with challenging behaviours that will one day want to be independent and will want to live on their own and certainly deserve to do so. So the lack of robust housing that's available out there on the market today, the lack of confidence that there will be sufficient housing supplies out there in the future is really disappointing. And it's something that we definitely need to work towards.
I agree. Listen, I have a few questions I want to throw at you that I just put together here. I don't want to ask you these questions randomly, obviously. How does the process of SDA assessment work? Take me through the step one to the very end so that our listeners can understand what is the role of the SDA Assessor undertake to complete the engaged task. Please.
So initially we are approached or contacted by someone who is interested in building and supplying an SDA dwelling. They supply us with some floor plans initially. We have a look at those floor plans. We assess things like spatial provisions. We assess the plans against the SDA design guidelines. We make sure that they're sort of ticking all the boxes. We return the plans with some comments and feedback, and then the client's architect makes some revisions, and then they send back the plans through for another recheck or another review. And this process continues to loop until the client is able to achieve or present some plans that tick all of the boxes of the SDA design guidelines, after which the plans are then ready for what we call a provisional design certification. So we then submit that to the NDIA on the client's behalf. The NDIA then issue a certificate which enables the client to move forward to construction. And once the dwelling is constructed, we return to the site and we conduct a final SDA inspection. And so long as the dwelling is built according to plan, we then submit all the required documents and checklists back to the NDIA, and the client then accesses their SDA portal and they apply for enrolment.
In your past line of work in this world of assessment, do you think every developer and builder does pre-certification, or do you think some do skip that little step?
It is actually a legality now. It is necessary. Yep. And I think that change came through in, I could be wrong, but I think it may have been 2019. There was a change to the SDA rules that required every design to be put forth for a provisional certification first. And then that allowed, I think, up to 2 years. I could be wrong there again, but there was some time allowed from the initial publication or issuance of the design certification to allow the client to construct and develop their dwelling, and then after which it was eligible for enrolment.
Are you saying they can't construct without the pre-certification?
Exactly. They can't skip that part.
Says who? The
NDIA.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, cool. All right. Wonderful. My next question to you is, what improvements would you like to see in the SDA assessment process or in the market broadly,
The process of assessing dwelling plans, I think, is the most time-consuming and the most challenging, both for an SDA assessor and for our clients. I think that interpreting the SDA design guidelines is challenging in a lot of ways. They're not clear enough. There is a lot of ambiguity around how to achieve certain elements in the SDA design guidelines, and having the client and the designer understand what those elements are and being able to transfer those onto design plans is probably the biggest challenge and the most time consuming. So clarity around that, clarity around understanding exactly what the SDA design guidelines are asking for and transferring that onto a floor plan is probably the best move forward in understanding that process.
Okay, wonderful. What about the main barriers to increasing the supply of fit-for-purpose SDA housing out there?
Is not understanding the profile of your participants. Walking in blind and developing an SDA dwelling in an area where you don't understand the supply, you don't understand what the needs are of the participants living in a particular area, there's a high chance that you will be supplying an SDA dwelling that is either not needed or is just not designed for purpose.
But Tanisha, the problem with the market is the builders and developers and the investors don't give that much thought. It's rare to find a mum and dad who's doing a knockdown rebuild for their child or a provider who's building for their own purposes of their business. It's rare. And I'll dare say 99.5% of the SDA product in the marketplace went in blind.
Mhm.
That's what I think. I mean, happy to be wrong, but I've seen enough because really the investors drive the market and the builders and developers drive that as well. And very rarely have I ever seen an OT or an SDA assessor involved in consultation at the very start to see whether it is fit for purpose, is it required in the community, because everyone has an agenda, Tanisha. The builder wants to build, make his margin, move on. The developer wants to deliver product to market and sell and move on. The investor wants to get his return and then maintain his return of investment, ROI, sorry. And very rare are participants or families or participants consulted in that early stages to deliver a customized product for their child or their participants. It's very, very rare. And I hope to see with our podcast bringing more exposure and understanding to the process in the marketplace that people should talk to OTs and assessors properly in the early stages, because truth be told, town planners have no idea, architects have no idea, builders have no idea. They're waiting for their fee to move on, and it's a vicious cycle of commerciality. That people should be more aware of the data and the design and the desirability of product to deliver it to market.
I agree.
And I can't stress that enough. Let's be honest.
I agree with you, but I also think that's because they just don't know that they're supposed to be aware. They're told more often than not that build it and they will come, and that's not accurate. Unfortunately, it's not. And as SDA assessors, we're not involved in the early planning process, but we do often advise, or at least I do, as an SDA assessor practicing in due diligence, I do advise my clients to always do their research first so that they understand the demand. Contact your local SDA providers, contact some SIL providers in an area that you're contemplating building within, and ask them, what are their participants looking for? What do their participants need? Because the worst thing you want to do is to invest a lot of money in establishing and developing and offering an SDA dwelling that just sits there vacant.
But Tanisha, that is what has happened.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because people just don't understand that they need to do their research first. They're not told that.
Now, I want to throw a number at you here. A little trivia for you. So you're in Melbourne, is that right?
Yes.
Where in Melbourne are you?
I work in an area called Clayton, which is southeast.
Clayton, Glen Waverley, Preston. Is that your area there?
Yes.
Okay. So here's my numbers for you. So I said to my office staff, my research team in the office here, I said to them, Denise, I want you to crunch some numbers for me. What is the current oversupply of places in Melbourne, all of Melbourne, right now? And she said to me, 950-ish. Okay. And then I said to her, give me the pipeline of stock in Melbourne and calculate that forward. So if the next 2 years, all this stock is delivered, the pipeline, what will be the oversupply of places, right? Guess. I'll give you 3 guesses what the number is of oversupply in Melbourne if all pipeline was delivered.
The amount of housing of oversupply?
Places. How are the places? Yeah, houses, fine. Product.
I would have no idea. I would have no idea.
Throw me a number.
1,000?
More?
5,000?
Lower.
Okay. We'll say 2. We'll go 2.5.
3. I reckon 3.
Okay.
Now, I'll give you my calculation formula. So, assuming all pipeline is delivered in Melbourne, there will be 5,100 places oversupply. So you got current supply filled up and oversupply. Now, one can argue, but hang on, how do you know that all will be delivered? Well, hang on. Well, that number there is a rough estimate, not accurate. So there will be more, I assume, coming through to add that 5,000 to maybe 5.1, 5.2 thousand. Okay. So if you're right, Mr. Calculator, and is not always delivered, then 90% of 5.2 thousand is 5,000 places. Now, is every place 3 bedrooms? 2 bedrooms? 1 bedroom. So a 1-bedroom villa, a 2-bedroom tenant house, a 3-bedroom tenant house, well, 4, even a 1-tenant apartment. So 1, 2, 3-ish, whatever the number is, right? Let's assume 2. So 2 per dwelling of 5,000 will be 2,500 empty houses. Now, if we're talking villas or apartments, it's 5,000 empty apartments or villas. So is that number there is between 2.5 to 3? Is that number? So I'm saying there will be, if all is delivered, given those 1.2 factor and the 0.9 pullback, we're talking about 3,000 empty dwellings across Melbourne for SDA in the coming 2 years.
Wow.
That is my forecast. And I talked to Debbie in the office. She wasn't surprised. I rang the Paramount Disability Homes boys, they were shocked as well. I rang Steve Dawson, a very advanced, very well-connected guy in SDA. He was shocked as well. Like, imagine that for a second. 3,000 empty dwellings across Melbourne.
That's shocking.
SDA.
That's shocking.
Now, if I'm wrong, cut that in half.
Yep.
1,500 is still shocking.
Yes. I did read on I did listen on one of your SDA podcasts, the opportunity to occupy SDA vacant dwellings under a different structure, under a SIL structure. Okay, so that's a new concept to me. That's something that SDA assessors are not exposed to.
Okay, so the numbers here, and then I'm sorry for taking this topic off a different tangent here, but in Australia, there's 1.7 million disabled people out of 27 million people. Of the 1.7 million people, there's 720,000 in the NDIS. Of the 720,000, there are 24,000 the last 3 years. There's no changes. 24,000 who are SDA funded.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 24,000 who are SDA funded, only 9,000 are living in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, 9,000 new builds. I think only about 10 to 11,000 are living in an SDA.
Okay.
So those 13,000 are still sitting there somewhere in limbo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, there's those 13,000 in limbo somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what about the other people who do not qualify for SDA, but are close to, but don't qualify, couldn't be bothered applying for, or trapped somewhere in a hospital, or mum and dad's house, or a nursing home? There's all those people there, and they're called SIL participants, right? That's 35,000-ish out there as well. So those 30,000 plus people should be living in a SIL home because they are high needs, but don't qualify for the SDA.
Yes. Okay.
So those 30,000-ish plus those other 14,000-ish, they're living in state government institutions, living in legacy group homes, they're living in mum and dad's house, and mum and dad won't let them go because mum and dad is earning a carer's pension now.
Mm-hmm.
And mummy knows best, so why should mummy let anyone else look after their child? So all those reasons why they're not going to SDA because they're being held back. Now, even the SIL providers don't want to let their participants go from their control because they're earning money.
Right.
So it's all about money here, commerciality here, commercial terms here. So I'm not blaming people but we know, you and I both know in the news there's some bad players out there, right? And that I want to keep the participants in the control to drain the funds out for their business survival. So because of that, and because of other reasons being, could be state funded properties out there which are not fit for purpose, they're staying where they are. And in Melbourne, there are 800 big homes, state government owned and controlled and funded from Dan Andrews' legacy, which runs out in December this year, 25. Right, so they also are state-based organisations there. So there's all these reasons why those SDA funded participants are not going out to find them, because also SDA participants are not. It's all about choice of control. Do they have really choice of control? Do they really? All right. Number one. Number two is they don't know about it. Number three is the SIL providers don't know about it. So Debbie and I went to a SIL summit in Brisbane here recently, and 100 people in the room, hardly anyone understood what SDA home was. They have no idea.
That's very interesting. Okay, so the two industries aren't exposed to each other at all.
So I asked the room, show me your hand in the air, please, who understands SDA. 10 out of 100.
Oh, wow.
What? 10? And I said to them, leave your hand up if you really understand it. And 5 left their hands up. So 5 out of 100 knew it. So it's the NDIS is a coin, heads and tails. One side doesn't understand the other side.
Yep.
And if there's truth be told, if you're a SIL provider with your 3-4 houses in suburbia Melbourne, your priority is financial survival as a business.
Yes, I agree.
Rostering, funds being drawn out from NDIS, paying your wages. That's your priority isn't worrying about the SDA, isn't worrying about choice of control to push to a brand new apartment in bloody Footscray. No, because your job is survival, and right now the buyers they can't survive at the moment because the the NDIS funding price guide is all really messed up, So what's the topic at the moment? Good on.
So we'd started with the oversupply of
Yeah.
really in
So there's a lot more talk now about SIL homes, meaning, dear SIL providers out there, you need housing? There's empty houses everywhere here. There's empty. Maybe you should reach out to your local SDA provider, your support coordinator, go online to LinkedIn and Facebook forums and talk about and see all these empty dwellings out there, which are SDA homes, villas and apartments. Because they're all, I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying they're all a lot of them are empty. And I asked this host at the SIL summit, I said to them, what's the average number of participants in a SIL house? She said 1.
Oh, really?
And I said, what a coincidence. In SDA, it averages 1 as well. So it is a bit of a challenge out there because SIL providers can't share a house. Imagine it was a 4-bedroom house, Tanisha, and one SIL provider with one tenant in there, the anchor tenant, and that tenant refuses to do for anyone else come in. Next, no, I don't like you. Next, no, I don't like you. Next, no, I don't like you. They have full control. They're personality matching, and if they're being a Nazi about it, sorry, wrong term, being tough about it, they can say no to everyone and keep the whole house to themselves, Tanisha.
See, I wasn't aware of this as an SDA assessor. This whole concept of an anchor tenant, that's just not a term that we're exposed to at all. So then how would that work in a scenario of a mixed model with an SDA participant and then having the potential of a SIL participant living within the same dwelling?
Yeah, as long as the SIL provider, the care provider in that site of that 4-bedroom house is allowed to bring in other participants in their care, in their business model, and they pay $300 a week for that empty room,
right? Yeah,
and that will give extra income to and then also the SIL provider may put some more money into the pot to pay more to the owner. So imagine a $50,000 SDA person in the house, and then this person who's not SDA but SIL participant, they pay $300 a week in rent themselves, right? Because the MRRC is about $14,000. And then the SIL provider puts another $300 a week as well. So 50 plus 14 plus another 15. There's your $80,000-ish. Yeah, that's better than zero, right? Right? Better than 50 because you know why? The provider could then try and get those two in there to be change of circumstances if they are almost at the SDA eligibility and get them over the line. So now we're seeing a lot more, and we're advising here more investors, hey, look, the house is empty for one participant. The provider can't make money. Let's be open up the other 2 rooms to normal SIL participants with a little bit extra rent and go from there. So and that's a partially full one. Now, what about all the other empty ones out there? It's a waste to leave them empty, right? It's a waste. So we're trying to give as much education to the marketplace. That hey guys, all you providers out there, let's all work together. Let's try and collaborate because you know what? As you and I just discussed, then there's going to be 3,000 empty houses in Melbourne.
Yes, I heard some gossip the other day that people were offering their empty SDA houses as Airbnbs.
Yeah, Debbie mentioned that from a cocoon scenario there. Oh yeah, but still, I mean that's what $150 a night. There's nothing. Right? Unless it was the beachside Gold Coast or St Kilda on the beach, which is a destination for tourists and travel people and participants for short-term respite on a day-by-day basis, then maybe that's okay. It could be work. But you're not going to Airbnb stuff out in Werribee or Wyndham Vale, or Tarnee. That's not a destination to go to for a break. Yeah. But we're approaching the end of this podcast interview here. Tanisha, what is your advice to our listeners and to the marketplace? What's your advice, full stop? What is it?
Do your research. Just do your research. I mean, if I were in their shoes and I was a potential developer and I was looking to develop an SDA dwelling, I would do my research. Call the local SIL providers and SDA providers in the area that you're hoping to develop an SDA dwelling and see what the current demand is like. See if it's oversupplied. Have a look at the local infrastructure. Are there community services available? Are there public transport connections? Put yourself in your participants' shoes and try and look at what life would be like if you were an SDA participant living in that area. Do your research. Contact your local council. Ask them about planning provisions. Connect with an RBS, a regulatory building surveyor, very early in the game and try and obtain as much advice from them as possible. Tick your boxes and do your research.
I totally agree. Unfortunately, Tanisha, everyone's form of research is Facebook.
Wow. Yes. And nowadays, anecdote advice is as good as any, but hopefully that would change.
Yeah, looks, and we can only hope to see more people become more aware, more conservative in their approach towards developing, building, and delivering products for the SDA market. And look, we'll see where this ends up the next 2, 3, 4 years on the track, because lending restrictions, valuations, land supply, demand from buyers. We're seeing more of a trend towards inner middle ring suburbs around place. And the lenders only want to be 35 kilometres max from a CBD anyway. So the outer suburbs like the West Melbourne, you're not aware of, that's no more. And by the way, pipeline there, just so you know, is about 1,400 oversupply right now in West Melbourne.
That is not surprising.
So I reckon we'll see 700 empty houses in West Melbourne in the next 2 years. And they're still building in those areas, Tanisha. Still. So we got the existing stock out there, plus the pipeline construction, which we know are being built right now.
Yeah.
Because it normally takes 6 to 9 months, well, call it 8 to 9 months to build a house, from pre-certification, design, permits, lodgements. 2 months later, start construction, then your 6-month construction. So it takes that 9-month period. So the lag delay of construction delivery is that 6 to 9 months right there. So we'll see those 700 come through in the coming 6 months or so. Yeah.
But when we break down as to why that is actually happening and why that's occurring, when you think about it from a developer and investor perspective, building out in that sort of location is cheaper. It's the cost of land is lower. It's easy. Perhaps it's more level. Topography isn't such a challenge. But then when you look at it from a participant perspective, it's too far from family. It's too far from, inner city, suburban or urban areas, too far from public transport and community services and infrastructure. So there is a mismatch or disconnect between the two needs of investors and developers versus participants. However, if we thought of some sort of, utopia scenario, let's just hypothetically say, where infrastructure was available or was being developed, community services and community supports were being established, it wouldn't be so much of an issue. So maybe we need to look at the gaps rather than looking at the current situation. What bridges do we need to build to connect participant needs with the initiatives that the investors are looking at establishing?
Wow, I'm speechless. But yeah, you're right. You're totally right. Unfortunately, it will take 2-3 years for those outer suburbs to be.
Yeah. Maybe it needs to be a conversation between so many different stakeholders to get into the same room and have a discussion between council planners and providers, and then investors and participants and representatives of SDA providers and still housing. Let's all get into the one room and have a conversation about what's realistic versus what's actually achievable.
I totally agree with you. Tanisha, I would love, with your permission, to add your LinkedIn profile to the bottom of this episode. To people, if they'll reach out to you, they can talk to you directly. Is that okay?
Please do, no problem.
But thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry I went off on a tangent myself, but
no, everything you say is informative, Minh, so don't worry.
I can't wait for the phone call in 2 years' time saying, Minh, there wasn't 3,000, it was 6,000 over.
No, I'm sure it's all accurate.
Tanisha, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. And we'll be in touch soon, hey?
Thank you for having me, Minh. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.